Right Royal Roundup. Sorry we're a bit late, Kinsey, but obviously there's a huge story over here. I presume, actually, morning to you, Kinsey, I presume, is it making, I don't know if you've even seen, but I mean, obviously he is a huge star and was a huge movie star in the States. Is this making a lot of news over there?
It is, yeah. I think that, I mean, I lived in the time frame that these accusations occurred. I lived in LA, and I guess I'm a little surprised because you do hear whispers of Weinstein. You did hear whispers of other individuals. Be careful around that celebrity because something could happen. And you never heard that about Russell. It wasn't don't approach him at a club. It wasn't be wary of the people he hangs out with. I never heard that about him, you know. And Katy Perry, although I was so angry with him after they split, she was a good girl. You know, I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It was like her first single that blew up. But for the most part, she grew up in a really religious family, and she had a reputation for being bubblegum fun, a little edgy, but for the most part, like, she was dressed as a giant strawberry. She was sweet, she was fun, you know? So it surprises me that she wouldn't get a vibe that Russell was, if these allegations are true, that he was a little dark and things were going on behind the scenes that shouldn't have been.
Well, I mean, and the other thing as well was that he was applauded for his Lothario ways. I mean, that was what he actually traded on. That's his act. That was what he used in his comedy. That was what he would go on interviews and people would say, you know, to him that you've been with this person, you've been with this person. He was given awards 3 years running for it. So it's easy with hindsight, and I'm not saying that he's guilty. I'm not saying he's not guilty. He denies any criminality. I guess I'm just saying that it's easy with hindsight to look back on some of his stand-up and think, oh my God, that is seedy, that is disgusting, that is vile, but that doesn't make someone a criminal.
Right. And I do have an issue with the fact that he's been so open about some of these things. So it's hard to all of a sudden go, oh, wow, that you had a secret life. Oh, there's a dark side to you, when he's almost overshared about some of those.
And that's very different to, of course, Savile, the Jimmy Savile story here in the UK, because Jimmy Savile, you know, did loads of stuff for charity, worked with children, all this stuff. Russell Brand's act was always an adult act.
Right.
It was always, and he was very open about his sex addictions and things like this as well. So, but again, I don't want to undermine women coming forward, but I just think it's important to point out that we need to be careful not to ruin someone before there has been any sort of due process. And I think it's just important.
I think we forget guilty until proven innocent, guilty or innocent until proven guilty.
But you're right. What we're doing is exactly what some people are doing, is exactly what you say. And I don't think there's a problem in having the conversations. I don't think there's a problem in discussing it. I don't think there's a problem in dissecting what we saw and reacting to it. But I am passionate about reminding people that he denies it, and absolutely passionate about reminding people of what you just said, that until someone is convicted of something, it's important to remember that these are just allegations, because I don't think he'll come back from this whether there is due process or not, and that is something that makes me feel quite uncomfortable.
Well, here's the thing. To me, he's done a magnificent job of building his own brand. Before, I'd say a year ago or so, he made some reference to the royal family that I really liked. So I had reached out to him and asked him to be on my podcast, and he didn't. But my point is that he didn't have to, because he has become his own media conglomerate. He's got millions of followers. You know, when he was his own publicist, he jumped in front of this before it happened. So I get what you're saying. Mainstream-wise, Russell Brand might not ever be able to be in a movie again, but he has cultivated such a passionate audience that believes in him, believes in his message. because he is a very,
Do you know what?
from what
You're actually completely right. I say he won't come back from this, but he's already got his platform. He doesn't need to come back from this when it comes to the mainstream, because he's not really a part of the mainstream anymore. And of course, his supporters would argue that that's the problem, and that is why a lot of this has come out now. Let's talk about some royal stories. Kinsey Schofield is here with the Right Royal Roundup. Now, Kinsey, let's talk about some of the stories that you want to discuss today. Okay, so Prince William is heading to the States this week. And why is he there, and what's he said to the media?
Yes, he's headed to NYC. He is going to unveil Earthshot's 15 finalists for the Earthshot Prize this year that's going to take place in Singapore. I'm pretty excited that he's going to be here. But he has made a request, according to some media reports, that American media not ask him about his brother, Prince Harry, which I think is fair. But it's in such contrast to Harry doing media last year for Invictus Games and talking about his relationship with his father and his brother. So I'm sure William's just trying to avoid, a similar instance. But yes, American media not allowed to ask about Prince Harry.
I mean, apparently a lot of television networks in the States have bid for Prince William. Apparently all of the main television networks have bid for interviews with him, but there is speculation that he's probably going to avoid them, right? Because he knows that if he ends up sitting down with... I mean, that's the one question you want. I mean, Earthshot's all very nice, he'll be stood on a stage with Sadiq Khan, yeah, great, who, of course, has flown 7,000 miles to talk about climate change. Brilliant. However, that's the one question. If I was a journalist covering this story and needed to talk to Prince William for a few moments, that would be the one question I'd want to ask. That would be the only question you'd want to ask. So do you think he's going to avoid doing any press?
Yes. But at the same time, not if you want to cultivate a relationship with Prince William. Not if you want to be one of those people that he decides, every time I come to America, I'm going to talk to you. I mean, there's being a salacious journalist and getting the soundbite of your life. And then there's having access to Prince William and, when he becomes King William. And this girl is salacious? Go that direction.
Is it salacious to say, how do you feel about the attacks that your brother has made towards you and your wife? I mean, I don't think... Is that a salacious question? I mean, I don't know. I think as a journalist, my position as a journalist, especially when it comes to celebrities, and I've interviewed lots of celebrities where you're told beforehand you can't talk about X, Y, Z, is that it is my job to ask the question that the person watching or listening would want to know the answer to. That's my job. And I've got to try and find...
I am so not like you, but you have a show and I don't, so... Maybe you're the better... I remember when
Maybe that's why, babes. No, I'm taking...
I know. I remember when I interviewed Kristen Stewart, they were like, don't ask about Robert Pattinson, and they were still together. So I was my assignment was to ask her a question about love. So I was like, whatever question about love. And then fearful that she was going to think I was hinting at Robert Pattinson, I was like your cat, so that she wouldn't think I was talking about love between her and Robert Pattinson. But so I'm always like, stay in the safe zone so they'll like you and they'll talk to you next time.
I was always of the view the final question, because they're kicking you out anyway on the last question anyway. And so my view was always to kill with them with kindness, try and be funny, be the slightly overweight camp man that doesn't intimidate them, and then go in for a couple of killer questions at the end, because by then you've got something from them, and if they kick you out, well, it's not the end of the world. Do it at the start, you'll get nothing more from them and they'll kick you out. Do it at the end. True. You've nothing to lose, and also do it in a way that you can maybe get away with it. So if I was talking to William, I'd probably talk about Earthshot, do all of that, talk about the importance of the prize because of his children and family and how important family is to him. And of course, though, you know, families, they have their ups and downs, don't they, William? You know, that would probably be how I do it, and hope that he would have been warmed up enough by then that he would give me something.
Nice. I think I would just be like, do you think Catherine would be my best friend? Because I'm ready, willing, and able.
Catherine, can she be my best friend? Can you tell me where I can find her now?
But really quickly, did you...
I mean, that's more likely to get you removed by security, by the way, than my question. That's all I'm saying.
Probably, yes. Did you see the Express reported that someone on Friday did ask Prince William if he'd forgotten Prince Harry's birthday? And he replied, no, you're absolutely right. Today's his birthday. I didn't forget. So, you know, he...
But
he
didn't say happy birthday either. He said, yeah, you're right. It's his birthday. I didn't forget. I mean, that's hardly the most glowing and warm birthday message, is it?
I was still proud of him.
I didn't. That is actually a bit of a cuss, I think. That is a bit insulting, because it wasn't like, oh, of course, yes, I haven't forgotten his birthday, and, you know, I want to just take the moment to say happy birthday to my brother.
Well, why would he say that? He was just like walking around Sandringham. He wasn't going to like stop all of a sudden stop and say, well, while we're all here, let's sing happy birthday to my brother.
No, but just to say, you know, and I really hope he has a lovely day, or, you know, I hope he really enjoys his day, but he didn't. He just said, oh, well, yeah, I do know it's his birthday. Yeah, I haven't forgotten. And that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a brilliant understatement of saying...
Good for him.
Yeah, I quite like that as well. OK, so Dame Joan Collins, who, of course, it should be the queen of everything as far as I'm concerned. She is just the most wonderful, inspirational woman. And she's the one I'm desperate to be friends with. I've got a couple of friends.
Have you met her?
I've interviewed her once, and she was a complete pro when I interviewed her, and it was for actually a Dynasty DVD release, and I've met her a couple of times. I was thrown out of her show as well once, but I'll tell you about that in a moment. So I interviewed her for Dynasty, and she obviously knew I was a big fan, and she was a complete pro, and I was like, what are your favourite scenes, and blah, blah, blah. And she, being a pro, said, so Cristo, she used my name loads in the interview, which I think is a really, really professional thing to do. And then she said, what was your favourite scene? And I said, oh, you know, it had to be like the season 5 cliffhanger when you took over the mansion and you had taken over Denver Carrington from Blake and he was going to strangle you. And she said, yes, and I was wearing a wonderful gown, wasn't I? And I said, no. It wasn't a red gown, Joan. It was a white Nolan Miller crossover gown that had a pocket for the contract that you could pull out to show to Blake. And she said, oh, you're right. Yeah, you are. So that was the interview I did with her, where I corrected her on her costume.
Wardrobe.
On her wardrobe, absolutely. So what she said about Meghan.
Oh, so, well, I literally only asked you that so that I could brag that I met her at King Charles's coronation. So thank you for letting me have my moment. That's my moment.
Oh, well, that's better than my story. You met her at King Charles's coronation.
And then to try to have like something in common with her, I said, oh, you know, you and I know so-and-so back in LA. And she just looked at me and she said, well, he's dead. It's like, oh, and which I knew, but I also knew that we had him in common. But she was like, well, he's dead.
But I could see her saying that. That's very deadpan. I can see that.
Yes, this has been a nice conversation.
That's such a British sense of humour. Well, I remember she was on stage. I went to her one-woman show with my mother, and we were front row. And we had so many drinks. My mother was on the gin. I was on the vodka. And she does this thing, whereas in the interval you put questions in a box, and then she'll read the answers to the questions in the second half. And I'd forgotten to put my question in the box, so when it came to the questions, I screwed mine up and threw it on the stage, and it landed at her feet. And
you accosted a woman.
Threw a screwed up piece of paper at her, and Percy was on the stage, and my mother had also had a few drinks at this point, and so Joan looked down and she looked down and she sort of looked up and said, well, what do you want me to do with that? And we shouted, oh, go, you know, stoop down and pick it up. And she turned to us and she said, I don't stoop. And so then my mum, who'd had a few drinks, said, yeah, go on, Percy, you go and pick it up for me. I mean, it was very, very undignified because we'd drunk too much. And then I never, ever got asked again, ever, because we had press tickets, which is appalling. I mean, this was when I used to drink a lot. And I never got invited to anything else again by that publicist, ever.
Oh, no.
Ever
oh,
again.
no.
But no, it was probably fair, to be honest, because I threw a piece of paper at Joan Collins on the stage and then made her husband crawl on his hands and knees to pick it up off the floor. So
I just love you. I love that story. Okay, well, just to go with our Joan Collins fangirl moment, she's playing one of your favorite royals, Wallace Simpson, in her later years.
Oh, amazing.
In a new film. Amazing. That's absolutely right. But in this interview she did with You magazine, she said, Meghan isn't really on my consciousness. So she just really dismisses Meghan. She said, of course, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, never steps a foot wrong. But when she says, you know, when they ask her about Meghan, she's like, she's not on my radar. She's very cool about it. Like, whatever.
That is also a complete cuss.
Oh, yes.
Right?
And she's destroying her. It's like the aristocratic way of saying you're non-existent.
It's In Bed with the Duchess is the name of what she's filming. In Bed with the Duchess. So there we go.
So good.
Okay, what's the other story you want to do? We've got time for one more.
Yeah, I did think that this Andrew Morton piece was really great. It was in the New York Post. One line that I specifically thought was powerful was he says, Diana saw Harry as William's wingman, not hitman.
But
Isn't that powerful?
Completely agree with that. I think that Diana would be furious with the way in which Harry has been towards William, and I think that she'd be furious with Meghan as well, because I think that I should say Prince of Wales rather than just William, because she, even in that Panorama interview, was very, very protective of the fact that Prince William would be the future king, and that was her job to make sure he was prepared for that. I do not believe that she would want to see chunks being taken out of him, damaging his role as future king.
Right, correct. And just really quickly, just to summarize, he's talking about these audio tapes that you and I've discussed previously, but he's saying specifically how haunting it was, some of her predictions. She predicted that she would only ever be the Princess of Wales. She said something to the effect of she'd love to walk the streets of Paris without people recognizing her. And, you know, she dies in Paris, harassed, stalked by people.
Wow.
So he said, you know, some of these tapes are really haunting to listen to after the fact.
Okay, well, listen, Kinsey, always a pleasure. Where are you? Are you in your mother's downstairs toilet?
You know it. You know it.
I thought so. You usually got such a glamorous backdrop at the moment, but at the moment you look like you're in the downstairs loo. Either way, you look glamorous and fantastic as always. Kinsey Schofield, thank you very much.